now he's hung his knight.
The name's Nans. Nans He-Man, but does he have the power to bring down Cagnus Carlsen? We're about to find out in a little over a week in the Speed Chess Championship semi-final. But first, how did Hans get here? Well, he's been swimming up the leaderboard for some time now. This is his quarter-final. Who had the white pieces in this game? Say it ain't so. Wesley's a pro. Look at those abs, just like a cheese grater. What a game this is, and it sums up this epic quarter-final. The chess world reeling, it's all to come here. Let's check this one out. Wesley kicks off with e4, best by test. This is online, clock time's on the left, Hans goes with the solid e5. We get ourselves a Roy Lopé on the board with bishop to b5, and now in response we get the Ich bin ein Berliner. Kramnik watching on at this point, he knows.
Pooh, what a move. What a move.
Yes, what an overpowered opening. The pawn under fire. Wesley decides to go for this variation, and this bishop comes streaming into the game. Hits that tender point, tender as a bare foot on a shingle beach. c3 played, however, preparing to set up the big centre, and it fits with a theme. Because after both players castle, rook e8, knight bd2, a6, we now see Wesley pick up the sniper and shatter the pawn structure. Why would you give Hans Niemann doubled c-pawns? Well, we're gonna see, because after this knight hops, allowing the queen to defend here, yes, e5 is under fire, and in compensation for the bishops, white's got the central push. This is the thing to note. The bishop drops meekly back to cover this pawn. Big old bishop seesaw set up over here. Now we see bishop g5, intensifying the pressure, and Niemann goes queen e7. In response, we get d4. This was Wesley's point when he gave the bishops, the centre is mine, and Hans goes wrong already on move 11. Needs to get back and do his grandmaster homework. Very naughty boy. Now, what happens if you capture? Let's note this. The pawn now advances, and this is a fork. You're going to win a piece here. You know, here's a sample line, right? No good. Piece dropping off. If we come back here, taking no good, what about bishop g4? Well, this was the best move, to at least pressure one of these knights so that upon takes, you can do something like this, different game. But neither move played. Niemann plays queen e6, breaks the pin, hits the knight, but after takes, yes, we see some pieces getting chopped. Wesley, however, is emerging a pawn up. You know, if captures, the queen's taking back, you are a pawn to the good. Well, 2 pawns to the good, even though this is dropping. And there's a threat now to go pawn d7, fork these two after you shatter the pawns. This is what black has to react to. So what does Niemann do? He plays bishop g4, developing with tempo, getting away from the d7 push. Again, if captures, this was good for white. Now in response, we see Wesley shattering the pawns, pawn recaptures, and he just tiptoes ever so slightly wrong. Rook e1 is the better move to cover this pawn here. Not allow queen takes. Many different lines then branch from there, but white remains better. However, we see takes on c7, very natural, but now black can take with the queen, dominating the e-file. Now knight d2 is best, but it's a very weird looking move. Wesley goes for second best, but 2 micro inaccuracies in a row here costs Wesley some serious advantage, because now Hans can take with check. If the knight recaptures, fine, then you win the queen here. So queen takes back was played, rook takes check, the knight stumbles back here. Yes, you could go with the rook, but then black shatters the pawns. So this was played, rook c8, and although Wesley was a pawn to the good, now it drops off the board. This is the big problem with how he played. Materials even once more. However, that doesn't mean that Wesley's not going to probe, because he can bring the knight around to e3. He's got the better pawn structure and the better minor piece when the pawns are split like this, coming into the d4 square potentially. A pawn pawn covered. Now we see this one centralizing, hitting e2 once more. Rook d2 covers, rook e5 centralizing. What an iron cross in the middle of the board, and after knight g2, Hans gains some space, trying to secure his bishop, but he doesn't get a4 just in time. We're going to see the significance. The bishop dropping back, f4 on the board, and Hans goes wrong here. And it's kind of interesting because the rook is a little bit trapped, running out of squares, meaning that it has very few good squares. Rook c5 best because it covers c4. Not played. Instead we see rook b5. It's subtle. What's the big deal? Well, now if you find the move which wasn't found, we go to the back cave here of c4, explosive. Black is in trouble. You have to actually switch back here. If you go rook b3, looks so natural, then there's this awesome resource of f5. What a monster this is, covering these pawns. And after the bishop retreats here, if you go here, you get eaten. Well, now you still get eaten after the check. These were the really cool lines. That is why c4 was so strong. Would have forced the rook this way to cover f5, but then there's h4 or king f3, the rook's offside, white with a big advantage, but missed. g4 from Wesley, launching Gary the debt collector down the board, but Hans now gets a4, so that in response to f5, he can find this diagonal here, stay safe, no longer any problems. This one helping to secure the queen side here. Wesley under the cosh now over there, and after king f3, both players now start activating their kings. Some of the advantage gone. h6 played, maneuvering the knight the best way to go now, but h4 instead, launching the pawns. Niemann now going wrong. They're scrambling to an extent, well, still a minute and 42. The scrambles to come. Bishop b1 blunder, allowing knight c4, but both players missing it. Absolute patzers. Now we see h5. Awesome move. If captures, then this one becomes weak. Bang, rook crashing through, and you pick up an entire knight. So instead, knight g3 on the board. Hans now takes on g4. King takes, rook e5. Yes, Wesley was better, but Hans is fighting like a lion. Rook d8, and now a series of great moves. Rook b5 back, knight h5 check, king h7 takes with check, and the king steps up here. If you'd come to g7, then things start getting hairy after knight e8 check. King h6, knight d6, hitting all of these points, stuff starts collapsing. So this the correct square. Now we see rook d2, covering this backwards pawn which was under fire. The bishop takes with check, king g3, bishop e6, and it's cemento. Hans covering the pawn structure. Knight e8 now played, hopping all over the place. We're down to seconds, scrambling. Rook e5, knight d6, and after b5, what a picture. All the black pawns on light squares, the white pawns on dark squares. Both players unlock dinner for 3 with Garry Kasparov. Here he is, what a guy. He's apparently an excellent dinner conversation maker, often chucks in the odd joke, a real Bantosaurus Rex. Real treat for both Wesley and Hans. We now see rook f2. Looking to invade on f6, so the king covers back, check is played, king g6, knight f6, and after rook e3 check, this is where finally Wesley's terrible posture catches him up. He's hunched over, he's uncomfortable, he should go to f4 with the king here, but not played. He steps back to g2, and Hans has this amazing resource of bishop f5. Not played, but it would win the knight here, because where does it go? If knight g8, rook back, it's in a trap. If here, thinking okay, you take me, I take you, then you can flick in the check, then you can win the piece. This was the move, but Hans checks straight away, trigger happy, understandable on seconds. Now he drops back to f5, but it's subtly different. Knight g8 comes. This time there's a square here for the rook. This is the key thing, and it's why this move, rook e8, is a terrible blunder from Hans. White's got the simple move, which Wesley just completely misses again, of rook g2 check. Why is it so good? Well, the king's barely got any squares. The knight and rook really box it in. And if you go to either of these light squares, then the knight comes here. You can't get out the forking way. The rook's dropping off the board. This would be the same if the king's here. This was the big problem. This the way to go, but missed. Wesley checks. The king steps forward. Again, rook g2 best. This time an equal game, but h6, massive blunder.
And now he's hung his knight.
You can simply take a knight, not played, hands maybe pre-moved this, but he gets the job done, wins on time, punches the camera, he goes 2 up in the match, and he went on to win the entire thing, setting up the semi-final that we're all salivating over against Magnus Carlsen in person in Paris, France, coming next week. Smash subscribe to never miss it, and if you want to see another epic game of chess from Magnus Carlsen, check out the video on screen. Cheers.